I'm like standing there, like she then just walks off without me, and I'm like just so stunned by the interaction that I'm standing there holding the umbrella I'm meant to be, and then I chase after her. And it was one of the few moments in my life where I just knew I'd heard from God. Like it just hit me like a ton of bricks. When I was 19, I went and did Bible college in Australia. It was probably about halfway through that I had this real sort of like existential crisis, I guess, and started really questioning my faith. Started to question if he was even real, to be honest. I had this really cool kind of moment where I was at a conference. I was volunteering. And so I'm walking this lady back to your car, holding the umbrella, and she stops like halfway along the walk and looks at me. She's like, "Are you a writer?" And I was like, "Yeah." And this is out of nowhere. We haven't been talking about writing. We haven't been talking about anything. And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, She was like, "You have the ability to express deep truth, and that's what like God wants you to do with your life." And then she just kept walking. And I'm like standing there, like she then just walks off without me, and I'm like just so stunned by the interaction that I'm standing there holding the umbrella I'm meant to be, and then I chase after her. And it was one of the few moments in my life where I just knew I'd heard from God. Like it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Literally the next day I wrote a song called Victory. It became like this kind of big song in church. About 2 months after that, United Record, and met Joel. Kind of actually right after that, met my now wife. Actually, the night I met her, I remember driving home and praying like, "Oh God, I don't know how you're gonna work that one out, but that would be amazing." So it was kind of this bizarre whirlwind where that like kind of one interaction with this lady really kickstarted kind of a whole new world. It kind of kickstarted my future. I was part of Hillsong through that whole thing, and in the middle of that, wrote So Will I, which kind of changed my life in a lot of ways. It kind of made me a part of United by accident. Like I think that was the plan. It was like I wrote it with Joel. We worked on that song for years, and it was one of the best songwriting experiences I've had still. And it was fast, and a lot of it's the same, but then a lot of it it's really missing all the kind of magic. And Joel heard it and was like, "Hey, I think there's definitely something in this. Like, I have an idea. Do you mind if I have a play with it?" And we'd never written before. I was like, "No, please, like that would be amazing." And so he texted back. So we had the "As you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born," but that was just the same chorus every time. And he kind of texted back this kind of rough flow that was like, what if the second chorus was like something about creation kind of, and then the third he did in this original draft that he sent back to me had the "And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear." And I was like, oh, that's really good. And I could fully see the journey. And the irony of this, dude, is I remember at the time, I texted him back and said, I was like, "This is awesome." I was like, "I don't think anyone's gonna sing it anymore, but like, at least we'll like it." And he was like, "I think you'll be surprised what people will sing." And I remember just being like, okay, like, no chance. And even up until when that song came out, I really did just think it was gonna be like a songwriter song. And even after it came out, and it was getting like good, people seemed to be into it, which was cool. But our worship pastor at the time said, "Hey, we're gonna do this in church on Sunday." I was like, "The song's not made for that. Like, just let it be what it is." She's like, "No." She's like, "I bet you." And she's like, "I bet you people sing it." And I replied to her, I was like, if people start singing that song, then I don't know anything about songwriting, and I will quit teaching it. Because I was like, it's not gonna work. And she was like, and then she sent me a video that Sunday of like everyone singing it, and she was like, "I guess this is your resignation."
Like you would again 100 billion times, but what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
It was about 3 years ago now, 4 years ago maybe, where I was really kind of struggling with God and faith, and had a lot of doubts. So there was this one specific moment, we were in South America. I was in South America with United, and there was like this one night, there was like 30,000 people there, and they were singing at the top of their lungs, and they're so passionate. And I just remember in my mind being like, oh, if these people knew what was going through my head right now, they wouldn't want me to be doing this. And that spiraled me in imposter syndrome. So that time, it really did hit me hard. There's a song I wrote on the last album which says, I learned faith isn't fearless. It's more like trusting when you fear the most. And I think there's a part of singing sometimes that you can sing a song in faith, like not necessarily mean it in the moment, but want to mean it. Like you're putting it out there as an offering of like, this is where I'm trying to get to. I was trying to find God in the middle of all of it and choosing to still sing, even though I wasn't completely convinced in some of those moments. So that season got really dark. I was pretty depressed. I wrote a lot, but none of it was happy. You know, like I wrote a lot of question songs, a lot of songs that I'll never release. And then some I did put out in that first record, a song called Faith Is, that like, it's asking God, like, are you finding these songs kind of hard to believe? Like, I'm struggling with this. There's even a line that's like, maybe faith is a gift that you wasted on me. Like, so that's where I was at. Really, I stayed in it for a long time and tried to write my way through it, and, you know, prayed and sought God. I wrote this song called Dragons, where I kind of like talk about this. The dragon in mythology is always guarding something precious, like whether it's the princess in the tower, whether it's the treasure. It's like there's always something on the other side of the dragon. But it's very easy, I think, as humans, when those moments come, like when you discover a dragon, essentially, to just ignore it and act like it's not there. And I kind of did that for years, and I didn't truly kind of confront it. And it wasn't until I kind of had this moment where I was like, all right, one way or another, I need to sit down and really figure out what are these doubts that I have, like what specifically are the problems that I'm having with God, really? Like what are these problem areas? And what I actually believe, like where have I kind of landed? If I was being 100% honest, if my career didn't depend on this, what would that look like? And to do that was terrifying, because I was like, if I do that and I get the wrong answer, like, what am I gonna do? That was like, I'm also gonna be like, outside of the job aspect of this, like as a person, my identity is gonna be like so thrown here if I get the wrong answer. I was back in Ireland at the time. I just sat down, and the crazy thing was, like, I put it off for years, like 2 years, and it took me 45 minutes. You know what I mean? To sit down, I just sat down and said, all right, God, like kind of took stock, wrote this thing out, and then I read it, and I was like, that's not as scary as I thought it was. Like, if that's who you are, like, yeah, we're good here. But I don't know why it had built up to this thing in my head. And that song that I was referring to finishes with, but the dragons I feared weren't all that fierce after all. And compared to the fear, the dragon was actually quite small, which I think tends to be the case. Like, you build up, when you do ignore the dragon for long enough, it gets scarier and scarier and scarier, to the point that the fear of it is actually a bigger deal than the thing itself. So I guess faith is believing and trusting and praying that the thing that you're hoping for is going to happen. Understanding that it's off the backdrop of like a world where that is not always the case, and things do go wrong. Not every prayer gets answered the way we'd like it to in the moment. You hear people say, like, you know, like, God's going to call you and you're going to have to go wherever you want to go. And it almost sounds like, oh no, like, I'm not going to be in control of my own life. Or I'm like, God's going to tell me to do this and I'm not going to want to do it and it's going to suck. And you know what I mean? And I think for the most part, that's not really how things actually end up working. And I love the idea that it's like, take all my dreams and bend them to your will. It's like, take what I'm offering you and go make it whatever you want it to be. But there is an aspect of it where you're still involved in the process. They're still your dreams, and he's bending them. And I like that, the partnership in that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, as a kid, that made me feel better about God. And, but I do think God is gracious in that he does, I think when he calls you to something, graces you for it. Yeah, there is. Even in all circumstances. There's a pastor in Sydney called Robert Ferguson, and he used to say, if someone was talking about, I don't know how I'd cope if I lost this person or if this ever happened or whatever. And he used to say, yeah, but that's because you're trying to imagine a situation that you're not graced for yet. And I do think there's a beauty in that, even when things are really bad and tough or hard things happen, there is a grace that finds you, even in those moments, that makes it livable,